Hello, Pyramid Energy. It's been 2 whole weeks. In this time, I feel like I have journeyed to so many different versions of myself, darker versions, versions full of light. And now on the other side of it, or at least from where I'm standing, I realize that this is not something anyone really opts into, but also a very necessary experience. I feel like I just woke up from a nightmare. And there are various types of nightmares we have. I've never actually died in a nightmare. I have felt myself almost dying. It's as if I get saved just before I wake up. I also have this feeling like I hold a memory of dream paralysis. So saying that this stage of my life and my journey has felt like I was in a dream, and however much I wanted to move and shout and speak and share my experience, it's as if I was paralyzed. And what happens straight after these dreams as we wake up? There's this sense of relief that it wasn't real, but also an acknowledgement that you felt it, you experienced it, and so on a certain level, it was very real. And so then you begin the work of starting to unpack what it is these experiences mean to you, why it is you needed to visit these places. Which parts of yourself did you forget? Whether that's around the power that you have in your life, or maybe it's things you really love that you've neglected, or it could be parts of yourself that are so vulnerable, even you're afraid to go there, let alone share them with others. And so now, having come through the other side, I feel empowered to be able to recognize this, whatever we want to call it, should it ever arise again. Because what I feel it left me with was a gratitude that I have walked as far as I've walked, a remembrance of the real, very real fact that it's me that has walked that journey. And so I know the steps through that journey. And I also somehow have this inherent knowing of how to wake up from a nightmare which I needed. When I feel around and I look around, I know I'm not the only person who's been through this. These experiences, while they sometimes feel like they happen on such an individual level, it's still the collective that is able to receive you when you wake up from the nightmare, and it is the collective that almost also needs you to overcome this part of yourself. And so it's as if there is a gift in this disconnection. To be disconnected is to go to the place where you remember how much you need the connection. I'm reminded of the Little Mermaid. And I went back a bit this morning to see, what is it that's sending me back to the Little Mermaid? And essentially, Ariel wants to have her experience on land. And she has it, and in this experience, she realizes the effect that she has on a human that needs to be saved. And so she realizes this part of herself. And there's this element of her voice, which she then trades with her Aunt Ursula, a witch, to be able to live on land. Ursula says, give me your voice, because her voice is her magic. Ursula says, give me your voice and I'll allow you to live on land. And her father forbids it. Her father, obviously master of the underworld in this story, knows the dangers of living on land and being on land, and obviously wants her to continue living underwater. And so this tension begins, and this war begins, where Ariel makes the trade, and then no one's able to recognize her on land. You know, I see this element of her father as being sort of the part of her that governs her life underwater, where she's safe, but where she misses the connection of life on land. And then I see her life on land as also not representing all parts of herself, because there's a part of her that she has to have held back to be able to exist on land. She eventually works through this, she wars through this, battles through this part of her, and fights for her voice back. She overcomes the witch Ursula and regains her voice, and is able to finally live on land with the love of her life, who now recognizes her because she has her voice back. And her father's also released her to be able to live on land. And I believe one of the reasons her father didn't want her to live on land is because, I don't know whether it was a sibling of his or whatever that was murdered on land, killed. And so he's aware of the dangers that exist on land. And so there's this, you know, as I relate to the mermaidness in Ariel, I consider that there are so many things that happen in the water that we feel, that we experience. And a part of us does wish we could just live there, but there is no living there, because there's a beauty to sharing your voice on land and with others, where there are many risks. There are many risks to one's confidence, and I realize that it's actually I want to say it's real, but it's not real. It's real because it sends you to those places to be able to recognize your fear, because only when you're facing your fear, in the face of your fear, is where you're presented with the opportunity to slay it. And this life on land is important because that's where we realize the value of what we have, and not just for others, for ourselves. You know, it's about self-discovery. It's not so much about anyone else as it is about self-discovery. And so this fear of presenting yourself in the present version of yourself, however many parts of this either have new aspects added or old aspects lost, because this is part of the battle. Part of the battle is, who am I? Who am I? This question has been coming up in personal readings that I've been catching up on. It's been coming up even in readings with friends, is this question of, who am I? And one of the biggest answers I received as I didn't even realize I was searching for this, who am I? I didn't realize, I was not consciously aware. But one of the pieces of wisdom, the nuggets that I received when I was doing my own readings, because I've had to do many just to be able to work through this energy and claw my way out of it, you know. What I discovered and what I was told was that whether you are on land or whether you are under the water, you are whoever you need to be at that time. And so this brings me to the word present, okay? Because we've heard the word present used in terms of presence and it being a gift, and present, the present time, the present, as opposed to the past and the future, but also the way it overlays over the word present, the gift present, as in this gift is always available. It is the only gift which is infinitely available, is the present. And it is always waiting for you and available. So even if you find yourself drowning in the past or drowning in the future, as you wake up to the gift of the present moment, pre being what is right before you, so it's presented right before you. And I also found the word S, when they look at in etymology, when they look at the word present, they split the pre and the S. The S relating to the sense of being, and so the presence is what is presented before you right in this moment, this opportunity to just be. But also there's something else I couldn't find in the etymology online, is around pre, yes, still something that's being presented right before you, but combined with this word sent, sentience. Sent as in something that is sent to you, quite literally. It's actually brought to you, but it's a feeling, and it's a beingness, and it's a feeling. So you're allowed to feel into the present moment and be in that feeling. You're not actually expected to be any other version of yourself. And so you decide as you put one foot in front of the other who you're going to be in that moment, which is solely based on how you feel in that moment. And that's your gift. That is what's presented to you. And so that is not, I want to say that any other way of seeing it is really rooted in an inability and a fear of what the present may present. And this present, this gift, becomes not only a gift to you, the self that is in the experience, but it's through your voice and your expression that the gift is then revealed to whoever it resonates with, which may change over time. It may not be who resonated with you in the past and who resonated with you in the future, but this is the unknown that we're not expected to even look at or consider, because as soon as one considers that, one has strayed from the present. When I take a few steps back and look at this more as an overview of how I even landed in that place, I consider that how I landed there was because of a series of very expansive spiritual experiences that when I returned from, I really had to reckon with. It's like feeling into information you've never been exposed to before, feelings you've never felt before. And so these feelings open up distant opportunities of yourself that you weren't aware of before. But also a lot of the way that you understand life also opens up. I'm looking at 2 pairs of shoes here. I'm looking at my children's shoes. There's a bigger pair and a smaller pair. And this feels like the big pair used to fit me. It feels like the smaller pair used to fit me. But it's been so long that since I've worn shoes, let's say a mermaid doesn't wear shoes. It's been so long since I've worn shoes that now coming back onto land, I'm being told, so listen, none of these shoes fit you anymore. So we need you to kind of say what kind of shoes you need. Okay. Next to these shoes, I've got gumboots. So I've got gumboots and I'm like, those gumboots look good because I can walk in the mud in them. It can rain. My feet will never get wet. Oh, wait, I don't have feet. I've got a tail. So I'm going to need, and so then the process of beginning to design what kinds of shoes I'm going to need. What an opportunity, but like what a task. What a task. And so this entire process begins where you now need to design who you're going to be. And this design you can't sit in one place over designing, spending all your time designing it, because by the time you're done, if you wait, what you're designing is not going to fit. So to an extent, you need to ask for a pair of shoes that's going to keep adjusting according to your needs at that time. So whatever size you need, you need magic shoes. You need magic shoes. And I'm laughing to myself here because that's how it's felt. I felt like I died, and I felt like I had to watch myself dying, going through all these phases where there's kind of that denial that there's a death happening, and then there's an acceptance that there's a death happening. But in that acceptance, there's like this light that starts to show, and you kind of want to swim into the light, but a part of you keeps wanting to pull you back to, the living world. But then these worlds somehow collapse into one world, one version of a world, where you realize, no, I didn't actually die. There were parts of me that were dying, that needed to die, and I can choose to live. But then in the choosing to live, whatever caused your death, you need to then sit with that and start the rehab of learning how to walk again from scratch. And in that learning, you recognize that to a level you're a patient, but on a very different level, you're a master because you've lived before. This is not your first time. It's not your first time, and you have the benefit of knowing what you want to leave as dead and what you want to take forward with you. One of the things I wish to not take forward with me, although if it ever comes up again, I will honor it. One of these things is the fear that can stifle me so much that I end up forgetting the gift, forgetting what a great opportunity it is to be in this life, to have this voice, to have access to this heart, and to feel this much. Because there is a reckoning with this existence on land. There is this trade where you do consider, perhaps I could leave the most valuable parts of myself. When I say valuable, I mean vulnerable, because those are the most valuable. Those are the ones that resonate the furthest and the most. There's this trade against your vulnerability that says, I can pretend to be bringing all of myself and leave the most vulnerable part underwater. And so I've reckoned with that. And in the face of that fear, I have recognized that firstly, I'm not the only one. And that secondly, I have not come all of this way to not live with my voice, to not live with my magic, to not have it heard, and especially to myself. And so there's also this reckoning of whether you'd rather just be dead. And the answer is absolutely not. And there's even more value in the present because you recognize that the present is not available anywhere else. The present is what all the opportunity sits in. And so you have to face the present because there's nothing else but the present. What is presented right before you, how you feel, where you are in this here time and moment. There's nothing else to be grasped. There's nothing else. There's no other pathway for your voice to be heard. But in the present, how you're feeling and who you are right now at whichever level that is. And so as I wrap this up, I'm just so pleased that I have shared this moment with you, shared this part of myself with you, because this is definitely one of those experiences that I wouldn't trade. I can't trade it because I now know more. I now know more about what I'm about, why I go through the things that I do, who I am, how I feel, the value of that. And it's one of those experiences that will form a part of my past that I'll keep with me. And so of all the things that I look at in my past, this will be one of those moments that I keep in a capsule so that if I'm ever in this position again, I can revisit it and be reminded of this strength and be reminded of the present and the gift of the present. I wanted to pull an oracle card from this Priestess of Light oracle deck, and the card I pulled is number 11, Opening Heart, Deep Connections, Water Blessings. I saw this card and almost put it back in the pile because it came up in the very last reading that I did, a personal reading. But then I thought about it for a half second and realized I am going to share this because it's deeply relevant to the message. She's standing here with light coming out of her crown, and she's standing at the shore, and you can see from the bottom that that's her mermaid tail. And one of the things that the ocean reminds me of is how, this entire ocean lets out a wave onto the shore, and various things are then washed out onto the sand. But then the tide brings the wave back into the ocean and leaves something behind on the shore, on land. And one of these things that now has been left on land, that still wants to be on land, has enough gravity to stay on land, is this mermaid, being you. And, she's on her own. She's standing by herself. But what this reminds me of is this sense that often on land, you can feel like you're by yourself, but you are not. And so, as I stand on land and I share my voice, there is so much more being transmitted with my voice than I am consciously aware of. And anyone who can hear the messages in my voice, even deeper and beyond my words themselves, that is who I'm together with. That may be the reason I even have the voice. This voice could be a combination of all these various levels of resonance, all combining and coming through my voice so that you can feel connected, so that I can feel connected. And what this asks for is an open heart. And our hearts are physically very fragile, not just physically, they are energetically fragile. They are very strong. They are very powerful. However, we tend to protect them because we don't want them to be hurt. But it's essentially some of these imprints and these grooves that even give it a resonance. And so we need to be willing to share our hearts and be willing to sustain the wounds, because the wounds also add to the light that then resonates from the heart. The guidebook says, "The mermaid priestess of the ocean holds out a hand, calling your attention to your right, the future, and your many upcoming opportunities for connection. Her other hand is held over the heart center, as this card portends important relationships on many levels. The first is the potential for a deeply intimate romantic love. Your soul longs to connect, so allow yourself to release any resistance and open your heart to trust. The next is the kinship of friends and loved ones who truly resonate with your higher desires and beliefs. This family of your soul brings support and joy that help expand your consciousness in amazing directions, including the energetic realms. The rolling waters of the sea represent the profound presence of spirit and the depth of the connections you can now make with the vast spiritual world around you. These heart-to-heart communications can be life-changing, so let yourself be open to receiving the powerful waves of inspiration and guidance coming your way. On a literal level, this card may speak of bodies of water in your experience and environment. You may soon find yourself traveling by or over water for personal or professional reasons. Your residence or workplace may be relocating near water, or you may begin a relationship with someone who is similarly situated. Remember, whenever you are near water, let yourself absorb the magic of its energy and the power of its spirit. Offer prayers of thanks for the life force of water that always nurtures your earthly existence. Affirmation. Gentle waves of love, friendship, and spirit are coming my way. I am deeply grateful for the life-giving energies of water. With this message, I want to say that water, yes, can present itself as this liquid, this clear liquid that we engage with, whether we're looking at the ocean, visiting the ocean, or a river, whatever it is, or a bath, or a shower, or a glass of water. But water is very much our existence. It's very much this new water that's referred to in this message could very well be a new group of people that you become exposed to. And the water in that kind of setting, or a person, connections, the water in that sense is all of the information that you're able to gather in the presence of these others. What message do they leave you with? What feeling do they leave you with? What do they reawaken within you? Because those things are valuable messages, and especially now that you've been yearning for more. For me, this more that I was yearning for, I placed it on what I'd been doing already. And now on the other side, I realized that it's not so much that as it is wanting to add certain things into my life, invite new things into my life, not necessarily compromising what I already have, but to enrich it. And so this is a message as well, to not take what you have and load all of your expectations on it. If you love it. If you love it, perhaps all it's asking for and all you're asking for is to be open to more that you can choose from and add to what you already have. And even if you keep it completely separate, whatever it is to allow it to affect you, allow it to shift you, allow every new experience to shift you and leave you with some of what it has for you, and to enhance your magic. At the end of this video, I've linked in a song by Alicia Keys called Distance and Time. I'd love for you to listen to it, because I was listening to it before I started recording, and I felt into it as though this is a song that's being sung by a higher version of yourself, a higher part of you that's waiting for you to come back to it, and that it's willing to wait, and that there's absolutely no distance and no time that will ever make it give up on you. I'd also love for you to listen into the vulnerability of her words and the place that she's sharing from, because that's where you find that part of yourself. It's in the deepest parts. And yes, you've got to swim through some treacherous waters to get there, but the point is that this other side of you would not wait if it didn't know that you could make it. Sending you love.